Thank you. All right, so I wondered about what I should call my presentation. There's quite a number of titles, uh, curse or blessing, promises and perils, the good, the bad, the ugly. And my presentation takes a little bit of a negative perspective. And the purpose of that is to essentially highlight some of the uh, perils, as I mentioned here in the title, of AI. So with that, firstly, a little bit of background, which I think is tries to give some perspective, or it gives a view of AI as currently exists. And this slide essentially gives some sort of a layout, I'm sorry about that, or some view of AI. I think the definition or the description of AI is well documented. There are quite a number of resources online. And for the sake of this presentation, the description that you see on this slide is sufficient. So one can also couch AI in a comparative way. We can call it silicon-based intelligence. It used to be called that, versus carbon-based intelligence, which is us, human beings. And there are several other names that are also used for AI, but they have different nuanced meanings, cognitive computing, machine intelligence, and so on. So very briefly, the world of AI can be regarded as two categories, if you like, of AI. One is computational, and the other one is what I call symbolic AI. And of course, computational AI is the most popular implementation of AI currently. There are quite a number of technologies that are developed. Of course, the most prominent one is that of machine learning. And what you see on the slide here is a categorization of some of the technologies that have been developed that can be regarded as machine learning technologies, but there are also other computational models. Now, the ones that you see here can be organized and categorized fairly differently. There could be a number of different perspectives on how these different algorithms, if you like, or models of AI can be classified. And if you look at most textbooks or course outlines, you will see a mix of all of these technologies being presented as machine learning or computational AI. The other branch, which I call symbolic AI, basically rests or is vested on two issues. One is knowledge representation, i.e., how do we represent facts, figures, knowledge in general, digitally, and how do we reason about them? And a number of logics have been developed to deal with the aspect of inference or reasoning. At the basis of that, it would be predicate logic, propositional logic, and so on. I notice now there's one logic missing, which is fuzzy logic, but that's usually classified as a computational form of AI. So this just by way of background and to give some context in terms of AI, and also to dispel some misconceptions. You know, sometimes some of these words are used interchangeably with AI, but these terms, subcategories, are really subcategories of AI, and I've listed a few of them at the bottom of the slide. So just for context and background. So turning to machine learning, this slide gives a little bit of detail about how the different kinds of learning that can be applied in the area of machine learning. There are basically three kinds. There are quite a number of algorithms and techniques that have been developed, and I've listed some of them here: image recognition, video recognition. In general, one can call it pattern recognition. Then, of course, one aspect that features quite prominently now, today, natural language processing, but there are also many other techniques or applications, I should say, that AI can be used for. And some of these applications are listed here. This is by no means a comprehensive or exhaustive list. It's just an example of some of the areas in which AI can be applied beneficially, as also the previous speaker alluded to. In general, the benefits of AI listed in documents out there on the internet are those four given at the end of at the bottom of the slide. It eliminates humans, its availability, it takes care of repetitive jobs, and there's a general cost reduction. And some would also add increases in performance and efficiencies. So those are usually the kind of benefits that are given for AI. Turning now to the risk, there are quite a number of messages, statements on the internet that now figures or focuses on the threats and the risks that AI pose. One of them is by Stephen Hawking. But we are fairly aware now, most of us would be aware that AI would have and does have significant societal implications. And we can see that in communities, in societies, everybody's clicking more and more. And so there's a general shift, yes, in the way human beings interact and human beings go about their daily lives because of the not just AI, with the presence of AI, but the increased use of technologies. Some of the significant risks that AI pose, as mentioned in the previous presentation as well, is that of autonomy, ability for AI to make decisions on its own. And there are many examples of those, self-driving cars and so on. The difference between machine goals and our goals. Now, this is a significant issue. If I were to develop an AI system that can fetch coffee for me, and I instruct the system to go buy me some coffee at Starbucks, will this system eliminate everybody in the queue at Starbucks to get my coffee? Those are things that we need to consider and think about. And then also, as previously mentioned, machine bias, gender bias, racial bias, and so on. And the important issue to remember here is that AI systems learn from data that humans produce. And that data inherently contains bias by those humans. And what we see in AI systems is a reflection of that bias. Then unintended consequences, there are quite a number of those. We haven't yet experienced AI. I'm not aware of AI systems going around, but that is certainly an issue that should be considered. And then lastly, of course, privacy and ethics. As far as AI systems go, human beings don't exist. AI systems live in a completely different universe than what we human beings live in. So there's an issue concerning the ethics and the ethical use of AI. And then there are quite a number of issues concerning privacy of individuals and so on. So these are some of the major issues that we need to address, consider in terms of the developments that are now taking place in AI. Specific threats, some of those are already happening to a large extent. What you see here is, for example, drones that are proliferating. And the problem here is that some of these drones have the ability to make decisions on their own. And there have been cases, and you can go back as far as the Iraqi war, where weapon systems have actually shot down what is called was guilty of what is called friendly fire, shot down their own planes, their own people, and so on. So this is already an issue. Then predictive policing, social grading, and so on. Those issues, the phenomena are already happening. And I'll give some examples about this further on in the presentation. In terms of cybersecurity, this is an interesting one. Usually, or up to very recently, antivirus programs would boast about the use of AI to manage malware infections and phishing and so on. Now, the situation is that AI can actually be used for malware infection and what is called smart phishing. And I'll give examples of those further on in the presentation. So we're now sitting with an interesting situation of AI versus AI. And I'll say a little bit more about that further on. Turning now to generative AI and chatbots. This slide gives a little bit of background about that, what they do, what generative AI is, and what is happening right now in terms of chatbots. Underneath, if one opens the bonnet, there will be two kinds of or two categories of AI models. One is called generative adversarial networks, and the other one is generative pre-trained transformers, GPT. The latter is used for the now very popular ChatGPT and BARD, which everybody is now very lately talking about. But the notion of generating text or narrative has been around for quite some time. There are quite a number of systems that can be used. I've listed some of them: AI Writer, Anyword, Jasper AI. And some of them are behind paywalls. And these chatbots or text generators, one can call them, have been around for quite some time, since 2016 for that matter. So ChatGPT and BARD is an advance on these, what could now be regarded as fairly primitive implementations of text generators or chatbots. Turning now to GPT and BARD. Here's some background, bit of information about both of them. The significant issue here is that ChatGPT 4.0, as listed on the, you'll find this information out there on the internet, is said to have 100 trillion parameters. Now, what does that mean? Well, in practice, it means you've got 100 trillion little dials that you can adjust to ensure that this particular system will produce the correct or the appropriate output. It's a fairly significant matter, since this now relates directly to how advanced, how sophisticated the system ChatGPT-4 is in comparison with others. On the right-hand side of the slide, there's a little example showing how these chatbots resolve issues and requests. If one simplifies it down to basic level, then what chatbots basically do is they generate the next most likely word given a particular input sequence, and the example on the right shows that. Both of these systems are multimodal, meaning that they can generate inputs, they can generate outputs, my apologies, and of text, audio, and video. And they can also use those text inputs and audio, text, audio, and video as inputs to the system. So here's some examples of what ChatGPT can do. On the right-hand side, I've asked ChatGPT to write a paper, and the system didn't get it. I think the word paper was a little bit confusing. So then I tried again and I said, write an article on the AI singularity, which it did quite well. And looking, I haven't displayed that result, but having looked at that result, it's something that a third year or fourth year AI student would certainly be able to produce something very similar to that. It still contained quite a number of errors, and it lacked references and so on. The interesting one here is the picture outputs, the image outputs that ChatGPT and similar systems can produce. The instruction was create a picture of a horse crossing, as you can see there on the screen. A fairly esoteric instruction. And what you see at the bottom of the slide is what was produced by ChatGPT. And that gives you an idea of the power of these systems. On the left-hand side, the request was write a proposal for an AI master's. And again, looking at this output, this would be exactly or very close to the kind of output that a budding master student or even perhaps a fourth-year student might produce and submit to whoever has to see this. So I think this is probably one of the issues and one of the concerns about these chatbots that is now creating quite a lot of concern, quite a lot of panic, one could say, not just here in South Africa, but globally. Some more examples. Here you can see the development of a phishing functionality. As I mentioned earlier on, it's quite easy to instruct or to request such a system like ChatGPT to generate, your phishing emails. These emails and messages are a lot more sophisticated than your the ones that we have encountered up until recently. So these are very genuine concerns. Here is a list of some of the AI applications that have been applied, where things haven't gone the way they should have gone, as intended initially. The first bullet, self-driving car accidents, is interesting. We human beings are still at 4.1. So at this point in time, we're still doing better than self-driving cars, which are producing 9.1 accidents per 100, I think, trips. Friendly fire, I've mentioned that already. And then in use in surveillance, some misclassified images which led to wrongful arrests. This was at some airports in the United States. And then, of course, the issue of bias as used by the Amazon recruiting system. So this is just some of the examples of how AI has gone wrong. The Google flu trends one is probably the oldest one, the archetypal example of how AI has gone wrong. It tried to predict the output of outbreaks of flu given text and information generated that would contain the word flu or influenza or flu medication, and it was completely off target. They stopped this in 2018. They withdrew this application. So these are real examples of how AI has gone wrong up until now. So there are quite a lot of other developments on the horizon. There are quite a number of statements. The most famous one probably is that one from Elon Musk. And his concern was about the development of AI. It's now fairly clear that the predictions made by some pundits on the rate of development of AI was completely underestimated. AI has grown much faster than what the pundits suggested initially, and it is very likely that this development will continue to accelerate. So we need to think about what the next stages of development will be in AI. The notion of general AI and sentience, again, I can emphasize that what is seen in science fiction movies has been seen thus far does not look so fictional anymore. And then, as I mentioned earlier, if sentience is achieved, how will the human-machine relationship be defined? We must remember that human beings and AI systems exist in different universes. And humans, as far as AI systems are concerned, don't exist. Then, of course, the AI singularity. Some would say and argue that we've already there. The point at which AI systems will be equal to or exceed human intelligence. Autonomous weapon systems. Back in 2016, Stuart Russell, one of the very important or prominent AI researchers or scientists, already raised this issue and issued a petition to the general AI community, asking for them to support the stopping of the development of AI, of autonomous weapon systems. And at that point, I alerted DST at that time about this and said, well, you know, we need to consider the impact of AI on in general in South Africa. And they said, no, that's not so important right now. You just focus on big data.
Dr. Vahed,
yes,
are you wrapping up soon?
Yeah. All right. Won't take long. Yeah, a slide on ethics and moral status of AI. There are quite a number of criteria listed for that, and quite a number of activities at global level, the UNESCO and United States. And some of you might have seen that the recent article on CNN about ChatGPT and the statements that was made by the CEO of ChatGPT. What do we do next? Well, we can follow the usual process of managing AI. Pause a moratorium on development. Most people say, no, that will not work, and I would probably agree with that. And then my last slide, how for education and research, how do we deal with this? And this slide lists some ways in which we can manage the effect of, especially chatbots. You can see here that some universities are already incorporating the use of AI tools such as chatbots. So that, thank you for the opportunity. I end with a statement from Stuart Russell, one of the AI pundits, that AI, like nuclear fission, is a technology, and its application is an important aspect. It's not good or bad in a way that a spade or a knife would be good or bad. So I'll end with that. Thank you very much, and I'm sorry that I've gone over time.